How's it going, everybody? And welcome to your May 2021 horoscope for Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. For one, thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Just a few things before you jump to your sign real quick. Just a few notes. In the description below, you can see where the chapters are at if you just want to skip to your sign as well. I write down all of the transits for May in the description below if you want to see what I'm talking about per each week. I meant to say that on the other sign videos. I didn't say that, so whatever. Anyway, all the transits are listed down below as well. These monthly horoscopes that I do are written based off each week. So I'm going to go by week. So when I do my weekly horoscope, you can, refer to that and be able to translate it to your birth chart and to, your horoscope. But anyway, I just wanted to start off with saying that if this is your first time on my channel, thank you so much for being here. Super excited you could be here with me today, and let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, Gemini, number one I know this is for the Gemini risings, but I'm sure there's going to be some Gemini suns watching this. Anyway, happy birthday. If not, it might as well be your birthday, because for the Gemini risings, you're having quite a lot of transits going through your first house. So this is actually a really, really active month for you guys. But we're starting week 1 of May with Mercury squaring Jupiter, which pretty much means you're going to have to say some things you weren't expecting that you were going to have to say to clear something up. The thing is, as soon as Mercury enters Gemini on week 1, you're going to be able to be much more self-expressive and feel more in tune with your own personality and less out of touch with it, because over the past couple weeks, you might have been in like a self-sabotage mode or just like unclear. And of course, that's going to lead into something where you kind of have to address something or say something that you weren't expecting to say. But then once that's done, things clear up. You'll be much more self-expressive. Then in the middle of the week, as we have Venus squaring Jupiter, pretty much means that you're just going to try to get away just by yourself to do things, but maybe try to do it, or you might try to overplan it, which can make things a little bit difficult. You want to go somewhere, you want to go here, or wanted to do something in more private, isolated areas. I think the only problem is you might overdo it. You might try to force things to work, and it may not work the way that you planned it. So just try to, let it happen, almost in a sense. Just let it unfold. And then in the end of the week, once we have Venus entering Gemini and Venus enters your first house, you're going to feel really good. Like, this trip that you take or this time away by yourself that you take is really going to be replenishing, even if it may not be exactly perfect, or it may just be kind of like not over the top. You might want something over the top, but you kind of have to settle. But either way, once Venus enters Gemini, you'll feel, much more pleasurable, sexier. You're going to be feeling much more confident, feeling much more expressive too. So I think that trip will be well worth it. So we start week 2, with Mercury conjoining the North Node, which is like, you're going to be kind of like feeling it. You're going to be on a sick one. A lot of self-understanding, really called to, like, you're going to be like a dog on a trail, on a scent, pretty much. That's really the best way I could understand it. Like, you're just going to be really in your zone, feeling good, feeling like you're on the right path. Either way, even if you're not on the right path, you're going to tell yourself you're on the right path. So wherever you're heading down, you're committed to going down wherever you're going, which I don't necessarily think it's bad, but it is fatalistic in the sense that it's leading up to something more. Anyway, you're going to feel clear, really self-understanding, very self-expressive. The new moon in Taurus is really going to allow you also some space to settle down, get grounded. There's a lot of new things that came up in your subconscious, a lot of, fears. You needed to get away a little bit. That's going to kind of get settled down this week. Things will get a little bit more clear there, especially because there was a lot of shakeups. Then, once we get towards the middle of the week, what is this? The Mercury trine Saturn? Yeah, Mercury trining Saturn. You're going to be much more effective in your communicating, your messages. I think, Saturn and Jupiter right now really teaching you a lot of stuff. Like, you're starting to get the big picture now. You're starting to actually, effectively communicate and effectively express what you've learned, which is really awesome. I think that's going to be very motivating. And why that's motivating is once you kind of realize that effectiveness, Jupiter is going to enter Pisces, right? So you're going to start to really see a lot of opportunities of growth happen in your career, in your public life, and how people see you. However, it's just really a taste. The way that I kind of explained it in one, I think the water sign horoscopes was, it's kind of like baking cookies. They've been in the oven, and now we're going to start to smell them, right? They're not done yet. We still got to take them out, and they got to cool and whatnot, but we're going to start really smelling those cookies. And as Jupiter jumps into your 10th house and goes into Pisces, you're going to really see what 2022 has to offer you. You're going to really get a good whiff of it, but you're going to start to see the opportunity. You're going to start to see the room to grow. You're going to see beyond the horizon in the terms of your career and your public life. So you've got a lot of good things looking forward to you, especially with Jupiter entering Pisces in week 2. But as Mercury enters shadow, that's where the context is going to begin to set in as you start to really rethink what you've been saying, what you've been expressing, your identity, how you view the world, how you take in information. This Mercury retrograde, because again, Mercury's going to enter shadow, and this Mercury retrograde's probably going to fuck you guys up pretty good. Not in the bad way, but it is like, this is your planet in your sign, retrograding on an eclipse too. I would expect this to be quite revolutionary. But all of that starts to begin at the end of week 2. The context really starts to set in. So start paying attention. And this is going to be focused on, what you're going to start to rethink about what you've said, what you're going to say. And there's going to be a process of kind of reinventing yourself during this time. Then we get to week 3. And like I said, for you guys, Gemini, this is a crazy month for you. I mean, really, you guys get a lot of craziness going on. But starting week 3, we have Venus trining Saturn, which is really good because I think a lot of your whimsical ability is going to be, or the whimsical ability to be charming, I think is really going to pay off. And I think that's really going to kind of set a new precedent for self-understanding. I think this is going to give you a lot of I don't know, you're finger guns, you're going to be feeling kind of cocky. You're going to be feeling good about this new understanding of this new education you're taking on is giving you a new understanding of yourself, which I think is awesome. As the sun enters Gemini though in week 3, you'll be seen in a new light, because this is when eclipse season starts. You're going to be seen in a new light that makes you reconsider what your best angle is, because the sun's going to enter Gemini and immediately square Jupiter now in your 10th house. So you're really going to go okay, maybe if I reposition the lighting, can I get a better angle of myself? Because I think there's going to be this kind of, you're in the spotlight, but maybe not with the best or the most flattering angle. So there's going to be kind of this challenge of how to change or how to shift that a little bit. Mercury's going to square Neptune. You're pretty much going to be I'm going to put a lot of money on the fact that you guys are probably going to get misinterpreted. You might say something wrong. You might. But if you're really paying attention, you might not. However, you will for sure be misinterpreted. Mercury's going to square Neptune. And so, this is it's not even, you could be clear as day. It's going to be misconstrued. It's going to be misinterpreted. You may not understand exactly what you say or how that, and how that can get conflated. So my best bet is just to stay silent. However, you can also just feel kind of confused about a lot of things. As we get to, is it this week or is it next week? Next week, Venus is going to square Neptune, so you're going to feel a little bit confused. But this Mercury square Neptune is the confusion is going to set in, and it's going to be a little overwhelming too. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. However, and also I want to say paperwork might go missing too. Some things might go missing. Some maybe you send a tweet and then it never posts or whatever. But at the end of the week, Saturn is going to station retrograde, which the new responsibilities, duties, the obligations, the challenges that you've kind of been taking on in the realm of your spiritual beliefs, your education, specializing, traveling, that's all going to really start to show up, the harder side of responsibility, right? Being responsible is fun until you got to deal with the stuff, right? Being the boss is cool until you got to deal with the crap that, the boss has to deal with. And so this is kind of happening in the area of your life about spirituality, religion, education. So I think the weight of what you're learning and the weight of, just because you've learned something and you're getting it right now, now you have to really apply it. Now you have to really, get the experience with it. So I think that's going to just require discipline and all that kind of stuff. But it really starts at the end of week 3. Then we get to week 4. And we start week 4 with the total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, which is pretty much going to just show you what relationships are staying and what relationships are going. Maybe something was heading in the right direction, but maybe you shifted your point B and like where your target is, and it's just, going on a different path. That's what I would see. That's the way I would see this. There's some type of releasing here, and it's not necessarily bad or anything, but it might just be like I'm going this way, you're going that way type thing. And no one's necessarily at fault here. Venus is going to square Neptune, which this is what I was talking about before and last week. And that's going to have you feeling really overstimulated and really kind of confused about what you actually like or enjoy. Like, you're going to be thinking like, that you might like something and you might try something new, and it might be a little bit weird and it might make you a little bit uncomfortable. Just kind of if you're going to do something new, if you're going to have fun, like the dose makes the poison, really. And the way that I would really describe this is like if you're going to go to a concert to enjoy loud music, wear ear protection, right? Don't do it with that. That might be too much, especially if you're not used to listening to loud music. However, you're going to feel a little bit overstimulated, get like a little bit too much going on, like you're not going to know what exactly you want. But as Venus comes up and conjoins Mercury, as Mercury stations retrograde, that's when you're really going to start seeing yourself in a kind of a completely different way. And you're really going to start to understand a different side of yourself. This is your ruling planet going retrograde in its home sign during an eclipse. With Venus on top of it too. I think there's going to be this, it's like one of those like Queer Eye moments where you're just like, you're better now, and you can like love yourself or something like that. But this looks like, you're really going to be like understanding yourself in a completely different way, and it's just going to kind of be like some shock and awe. But as Mercury stations retrograde, everything that you've been doing over the past couple weeks since May kind of started, you're going to go over that again. You're going to review that. You're going to reflect on that and what it means about you, what it means about your identity, and how you view your world. Now, at the end of week 4, as we close out May, Mars is going to trine Neptune, which is kind of pretty much bring up some unexpected costs. I think also unexpected, expenses from work. So try to only spend what you need during this time too. And I mean, really, we kind of close out May with you having this like inner drive to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like be yourself, like manifest into yourself. I don't even know, like come into yourself. So, like I said, May's pretty crazy for you guys. So with that being said, I will catch you next month. All right, Libra rising. So, actually, hold on. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right chart here. Yeah, because you guys got quite a bit going on this month. All the air signs do anyway. You're gonna start week 1. Probably with like kind of a harsh communication, nothing like crazy, but maybe trying to get everything in one breath. Immovability, not, like try to talk about something, but the topic actually doesn't get talked about because of something. That's the way I would look at it. Anyway, as Mercury enters Gemini, though, your mental energy is you're going to become much more focused on your spirituality, education, your beliefs, traveling if that's involved. But it's much more focused on higher thinking in general. However, as Venus squares Jupiter, you might be taking on more than you should just out of desire. And there's going to be this kind of, what's yours, what's theirs in terms of, creative, fun energy. And there's going to be like, just the dose makes the poison. Don't overdo it when it comes to sharing resources, especially if this is fun, especially if this is like desirable. As Venus enters Gemini, though, at the end of the week, you're going to be much more compelled to value, your mind's just going to be much more, or you're going to be valuing much more about the spiritual side of your life, your inner thoughts. Also be much more focused on higher education, any type of growth, really, as Venus gets shifted there. Venus is your ruling planet too, so you're just going to be much more focused in this area of exploring, of adventuring, of learning, of growing. So week 2 is where things get kind of interesting for you guys. Things get like, yeah, this is just a really interesting month. Like the tides really turn. But we start the week off with Mercury conjoining the North Node. That's really going to give you kind of like this destined insight as to where your mind is being pulled to learn and educate yourself. So you're going to feel yourself like really compelled to go in a certain direction, or learn something, or go somewhere. The new moon in Taurus is really going to help bring some level and stable energy again back to shared resources and debts and other people's money after having, maybe you had to make some expenses or you had to get things sorted out a little bit. Once that happens, I think it's Mercury trine Saturn. You'll really be like enjoying learning right now. Especially, you'll probably have some type of teacher come in, and you'll be really preoccupied with some new hobby that you're learning, that you're taking on. I think that's going to be really fun. But then Jupiter enters Pisces, and that's really going to show you what you get to look forward to in 2022, right? We're really just getting kind of a whiff of it, but that's really going to show you the opportunity and the increase in health, habits, and work. And this is all stuff for the better, usually. I'm sure, sometimes there's too much of something, right? But as Jupiter goes into your sixth, you're really going to see the opportunity for what your work and your health can be on a day-to-day level. But then Mercury enters shadow. And as Mercury enters shadow, context starts to develop in terms of what beliefs and experiences you're going to be reviewing and going over here in the next few weeks. But the context really starts to set in. So it's important to start paying attention to what you're learning, what you're experiencing, where your mind's kind of getting focused towards, because you're going to go over all of this again here in the next few weeks. So week 3 is a little weird. Week 3 is kind of a shakeup compared to week 2, but week 3, you're going to be feeling the connection, the stimulation from all this new knowledge and experience you're getting in this creative area. You're having fun, you're learning all this stuff, going out and exploring, which that's good, nothing wrong with that. But as the sun enters Gemini, you're going to start to feel this, again, more of an intense draw towards higher thinking and how it relates to your work. There's going to be kind of this challenge of where to integrate education too, possibly into your work. But then Mercury is going to square Neptune. And this is going to be confusing for a lot of people, but Mercury squaring Neptune is pretty much going to for sure give you some type of miscommunication or misinterpretation with coworkers, employees, or those that you teach, those that you work with every day, maybe even with doctors too, like with a specialist. Like you're going to be like, what did that fool just say? So expect and it's not necessarily, again, I said misinterpretation for a reason, because it may not even be a miscommunication. It may be like you understand it wrong versus what the person was actually trying to get across. So just try not to make assumptions and ask for clarity, especially during week 3. But as Saturn stations retrograde, you're going to be faced with the much more harder realities of taking more responsibility and duty and obligations towards your procreative and recreational life, right? Like, all of this new responsibility and ideas and discipline around, fun, romance, sex, pleasure, recreational, self-expressive side of you. You've been taking on a whole new side of that. And now, responsibility is cool when you get put in positions of authority, but also those positions of authority are also like vulnerable places, right? And you're responsible for a lot, and the responsibility part, usually people don't want that. And as Saturn stations retrograde, that's where a lot of it's going to hit in. So you're going to be really challenged, right? Like, now that you got more responsibility, a little bit more duty. Now it's time to step up to the plate, essentially, which I think will be kind of a challenge, but I think you'll have fun with it. So then we get to week 4. I'm kind of flying through your guys' horoscope. Kind of not an easy month for you, just it's all kind of like in very interesting parts of your chart. Anyway, we get to week 4. Total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. That's really going to highlight how you might need to change how you communicate and express things, right? You might need to change an ideal, or, you might need to be a little bit more realistic about how to express something and get something across. But something also might need to change and need to be let go and change direction in terms of the relationships that are like within close proximity to you. Not necessarily so much friends, but maybe, this could be siblings, this can be neighbors, this can be family members, this could just be those that are nearby, right? And this is also, again, dealing with your communication. This is also dealing with your schedule too, a little bit. Like, what is your routine? What are you, how much do you take on, and what needs to get released? What needs to, pretty much what do you got to let go of in order to keep going forward? But Venus is going to square Neptune, also in week 4, which is pretty much going to have you feeling confused and overstimulated with information along the lines of, like, what you've been learning, what you've been experiencing. It's going to be a lot, right? It's going to be kind of too much. So don't be afraid to turn down the music, and don't be afraid to kind of like chill out for a little bit, because it might be overwhelming and it's going to get in the way of like your routine, of your flow. And I think that's where it'll get kind of weird for you. But as Venus conjoins Mercury, as Mercury stations retrograde, this is where from here on out for the next couple of weeks, you're going to really be, reviewing and kind of changing some of your beliefs. I think you're going to experience something cool and good, and I think that's going to shift your ideas about something. You're learning a lot at this point. No, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. But this is where you really start to reconsider some of your worldviews, and you really start to maybe rethink some of your experiences, and I would say a positive way, like not necessarily like, oh, that was actually worse. It's actually just like maybe taking in more information that you didn't have before, seeing something that you didn't see before. But as we get to the end of week 4, Mars is going to trine Neptune, which will give you kind of like an idealistic solution if you trust your gut with who and what to protect in the workplace. Like, I haven't even talked about Mars in Cancer throughout May because it's kind of just hanging out. But you're going to be kind of like defensive, and you're going to be dealing with more fights and conflicts in the workplace throughout the whole month. And there's going to be kind of this like needing to be protective and defensive. And this is, as Mars trines Neptune at the end of week 4, really you're going to have idealistic solutions, and it may not be that easy to apply them. And you're really just going to have to trust your gut with, again, who is on your side essentially. But that's May for you guys. So with that being said, I will see you guys next month. All right, Aquarius rising. As you can see, it's a little bit dark now. There's a little bit of gap in the last time I recorded. So anyway, Aquarius rising. May's pretty crazy for you guys. May's actually really exciting. You guys have had quite a lot going on. May gets really exciting. We start week 1 off with Mercury squaring Jupiter. It's going to kind of force you to budge a little bit in terms of what you can take on. You have all this kind of opportunity, and Mercury squaring Jupiter is kind of like, it's like when you buy a car, right? You're like, oh, this is the price. And then they're like, well, there's also this involved, and there's also this expense involved. So just, there might be a little bit more of extra terms and conditions to what you're kind of taking on. It's pretty much going to show you also too where you need to take care of in terms of the living situation, home life. But later in the week, Mercury is going to enter Gemini, and that's going to give you a lot more time to think creatively, with more fun, with more passion involved. Your ideas, your thoughts are going to be much more focused on self-expression, focus more on recreation, creativity, and I think you'll be enjoying that a lot more. However, as we go on through the week, Venus is going to square Jupiter, and that's going to kind of show you where, what luxuries are fine and what is not, and when is enough, right? You don't want to overindulge in spending at the home. There's kind of like this like enjoyment with family and home and living situation right now. Venus and Taurus is a very specific taste, and with it squaring Jupiter, it's like, don't try to ball on a budget, I guess, or try to, you're going to have maybe some unexpected expenses maybe even come up. Like you might be taking on a little bit more than you expected. So yeah, don't overindulge. Venus is going to enter Gemini though at the end of the week. And that's where you're going to become much more focused on, sex, creativity, self-expression, your hobbies. You're going to be really focused on stimulation, having fun. Children too, if you do have kids, there is going to be a much bigger focus brought to them. So week 1 really is kind of like, you kind of have a lot going on just to start the month off. Week 2 is where things get actually really exciting in my opinion, because we start the week off with Mercury conjoining the North Node. That's where you're going to have like a really intense mental focus and mental draw around, like creativity, self-expression, any type of really fun, whether that's a vacation or that's, getting yourself into a new hobby or just picking something back up. It's going to be fun. It's going to be relaxing. Same thing with children too. Anything with kids is going to get brought up really intensely. The new moon in Taurus is also going to give you some like time to get things kind of settled out in your living situation. Maybe things have been kind of crazy going on there. This is where you can really, have things get leveled out and things be much more comfortable, especially after the past couple turbulent weeks. You'll finally feel like you'll be able to express yourself the way that you like to also. Mercury is going to be trining Saturn. This is like effectively and creatively kind of getting the point across, especially with, Saturn's in your first house right now. Like you're kind of a different person and you're operating from a different space and kind of command a different authority. But yeah, then in the middle of the week, the big show happens. Jupiter enters Pisces. And this is when you're going to see, for one, this is where you're going to start to see themes of what 2022 has for you really develop. But the way I've been analogizing this has been like, it's kind of like when you've baked cookies. We're starting to smell these cookies and they're not done yet. And of course, they have to be finished and then they have to cool before we can actually enjoy them, which that's going to take till next year. However, we're going to start to be able to smell what's coming. And as Jupiter enters Pisces, you're going to see a really big opportunity get focused on income and possessions. This is going to give you a kind of a boost or insight into what Jupiter is going to give you next year. This is coming in terms of property and possession. So this could be buying more because you're making more money. That's the thing. With Jupiter, more money, more problems too. Anyway, it is all good though. I think you are going to get a really good taste of the income boost coming into 2022. And then as Mercury enters shadow later on in the week, that's where context is really going to start to develop, where you'll eventually review and rethink a lot of these, your hobbies, your self-expression, all this fun stuff that you're doing. Pay attention to it. It's going to come up and it's really going to get focused on with this Mercury retrograde. However, as Mercury enters shadow, this is when all of the context starts to develop. And this is when you should just start really, listening in. Then week 3. Week 3 is cool for you guys, in my opinion. The week starts off with a stable connection between, I think, the new person that you're stepping into being and enjoying the newness and the stimulation of the information you're getting. Like you feel like you're a new person, you're stepping into this new person and you're having fun with it, right? That's really settling in to start the week. So I think that's just a great way to kind of start the month. But as the sun enters Gemini, you're going to, again, that brings more focus to children, self-expression, sex, creativity, fun, all that stuff. But there's going to be a dilemma with money or possessions with it. Not a bad one. Like maybe this is something, there's some way you have to integrate the two, and it's going to be kind of a challenge. As Mercury squares Neptune, though, you're going to be kind of surprised when something maybe costs extra than you thought. When you're kind of in the middle of something having fun, there is going to be kind of this blurred lines and this blurred confusion of like, what's yours versus, what do you want? Like, how do you get that right? There's going to be some confusion with the Mercury Neptune, though. So this could be like you might spend more than you thought on a night out. So just be aware, but hey, you're having fun. But then Saturn's going to station retrograde. And that's when you're going to be starting to deal with much more of the heavier sides of Saturn, right? Saturn rules responsibility, discipline, commitment, and Saturn's in your first house. You're really, like I said, you're kind of stepping into a new version of yourself. As Saturn stations retrograde, though, this is where the weight of those obligations and that responsibility is really going to kind of hit. Where I would usually say this is going to be hard for most people, you're ruled by Saturn, right? So this is kind of like, you're kind of built for this in a sense, and this is kind of like when the test is coming, right? Saturn, like you're an Aquarius rising, Saturn rules your ascendant, and it's coming to return into your first house. Like this is really where you're really being tested and challenged of who you are, and not even through like a competitive sense, but like I think as Saturn stations retrograde, this is where, if you're in a team and you're playing for the championship, this is where we start to get to the playoffs. Like, all right, it's starting to get real now. It's starting to get intense, and you got to kind of shaping up. And I think there's going to be a much more of a theme of being more disciplined, being more self-conserving, being more taking on more authority too. And I think it's just going to be a heavier weight this go around. You know, it's going to be. It's kind of like after lifting weights for a while and you add on more weight, you're like, ooh, this is starting to get a little bit strenuous. Then we get to week 4, and week 4 is weird, I think, for you guys. It's much different than everything else. However, of course, there's themes that continue along, but we start the week off with the total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. That's really going to show you what friendships and community members can stay and who needs to go. There's a release, there's a drain around friendships, around community. There's, you know, maybe the ideals aren't shared anymore, and you'll feel that it's time to shift your aim higher to different targets during this time. As we move on in the week, Venus is going to square Neptune, and that's where you're going to feel much more overstimulated and question what you're getting into as far as your creative pursuits. Like, you know, maybe you're doing too much or getting too lost into it, maybe spending too much money also. But as Venus comes up to conjoin Mercury, as Mercury stations retrograde, this is where you're really going to start to heavily reconsider some ideas around what you actually enjoy versus what's just stimulating. I think this Mercury retrograde is really going to just really call into question, you know, what do you want? And as I think Mercury retrograde on top of Venus is really kind of like figuring that out through figuring out, you know, I mean, for you guys, it's kind of like home situation, belief stuff, personality stuff. I don't know. There's this whole revision and resituating, also miscommunication, misinterpretation too, when it comes to understanding what it is that you want. That's that Mercury square Neptune that we've kind of had. But as we end week 4, Mars is going to trine Neptune, and that's going to help make your work a much more idealistic situation, where you can really, you know, kind of focus more on what needs to be taken care of. Nothing too bad. It looks good, though. I just think that the end of May really calls into question, and there's kind of this big realization of like, oh, I don't, like, what do I want? What am I doing, in a sense, but not in like a who am I, because I think you're actually stepping into a part of yourself that you haven't done before, and that's really exciting, but the rest of it is different. But anyway, that's what I got for you guys. So with that being said, thank you so much, and I'll be seeing you next month.